I come in for a hockey game.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer? We
Yes.
start today, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can hardly wait.
Okay, it's October 22nd, time for a regular board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Roll call will show that all commissioners are present today. The first item we have for business is to approve the agenda. Commissioners and staff, do we have any changes in the agenda? We do have one, and that's we're going to take item number 13 off the consent agenda, and we're going to place it after the public forum. And you'll see what that presentation is here shortly. So, and if there are no other changes, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as mentioned.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Notch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. The next item we have is the public forum. Now, today's public forum, it's about those folks that would like to have a few words about certain issues that are not on the agenda today. So if you've got something you'd like to speak about that's not on the agenda today, you can come up to the microphone and we'll give you a couple of minutes to have those words. Anybody wishing to speak at the public forum? Anybody wishing to speak at the public forum? Please come forward, state your name. Okay.
My name is Roger Weiss. I live at 40815 County Road 1, Rice, Minnesota. And I basically live at the very, you come down County Road 1 as you're heading north. You take a right to go into what was Gilligan's at the time. I live, pasture to the left is my property.
Right. Are you here to speak about the restaurant and then to change the property?
Pardon me?
Are you going to be talking about the rezoning?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have a
Absolutely.
separate public hearing just for that.
That's
okay?
a separate hearing
Yep,
for that. And that's
separate public.
when?
It'll be shortly.
Okay, because I got a
Okay.
parking meter running.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when the
unless
lot's
you wanna
full, so
pay
do
that.
I.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be back.
Okay, we'll get you on right away, okay? Is there somebody that wants to speak about another topic? Anybody wishing to speak about another topic? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Today we have a special presentation. Lieutenant Hemish, come on forward. We've got some good news, and we just took that off the consent agenda.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Lieutenant Kellen Hemish. Today I have a special guest with me. Jeffrey Hoff is a personal representative for the Olga Duvier estate. Olga and her husband Val lived in rural Stearns County and had no other next of kin. Mr. Hoff has assisted the Duviers with continuous help through the Duviers' last years of their lives. Val passed away in 2016 and Olga passed away last year. Olga's will listed the Stearns County Sheriff's Office Canine Unit as a beneficiary. Today I am receiving a check from Mr. Hoff in the amount of $61,787.42 with an additional $10,000 expected later on after possible expenses. So the total amount received should be $71,787.42. I want to personally thank Mr. Hoff for his work and also acknowledge the Duviers for this generous donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Mr. Hoff, you have anything to say?
Yes, thank you. The Duviers were a nice German couple that lived here for many years, farmed with very little equipment, just the two of them, no children. They didn't spend any money on themselves, clothes, entertainment, anything. They saved everything. They still had a washer, dryer, and their kitchen table when they got married 50 years ago. So this is a hard-earned money that they want to leave to the dogs. And they always had a German Shepherd named Rex. So if you could ever name a dog Rex, they would be ecstatic.
Okay. Okay, we've got a suggestion for a name, just like a baby.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
I can't make that happen, even though I'm chair.
Right.
We'll see.
Okay. But that's it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You can bring the check forward, please, if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, Board, I'd like to have a motion to accept that donation if I could.
So move.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. It's good to see that. The next item we have is the consent agenda. And now we have 12 items on the consent agenda. Commissioners, are there any items on that consent agenda that members would like to pull for further discussion?
I have some I'd like to speak to, numbers 2 and number 5. I don't know if you want them pulled or if we can just discuss them right now.
Should we discuss them now or pull them? Well, why don't you go ahead. Let's do number 2.
Okay, number 2, when we talk about the capital improvement plan, there are some things I'd like to make sure that are addressed in there. As I went through the presentation that we received, which was 45 pages, I didn't see anything addressed in there about some sort of plan for retiring the county debt. And something else I'd like to see is how much interest did we actually pay on loans last year? I got to do a little more research on this, but I believe it's my understanding that Crow Wing County has actually retired their debt. Worked hard on retiring it. And that would really help our taxpayers quite a bit. They didn't have to pay interest. So I'd like to see that included in the, at least addressed in the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
I can address a couple of those things. So this is a document that's made for public consumption. It's a legal document that has to be approved. The intention is in 2 weeks, when we do the public hearing, we will go through a more detailed presentation, and we'll make sure we include those points in that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, number 5.
Okay, number 5, we're transferring $6 million from the general fund to the project fund. I'm not exactly sure what the project fund is, but I would prefer to see that, to go back on to what number 2 was, I'd prefer to see that to reduce the county debt, to pay down that debt. We've got an extra $6 million, and that's because we're above what the state allows, is my understanding, for that fund.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Morgan, yeah, it's a recommendation from the State Auditor's Office how much we should have in reserve as a fund balance. And really that transfer is going into the project fund, is what funds our capital improvements. And so it wouldn't, we plan to use that $6 million to reduce our total debt as we incur new debt here. In the long term, we don't plan on doing that in this next bond issue, but when we do the large bond issue in the future that we're anticipating, we could use it at that time.
Or the other thing we could possibly use it for is to reduce the levy. You know, the $6 million, we could use that to.
You could, and I think that, you make those kinds of calculations, but if we actually use that $6 million and incur less debt in the future, it does have a significant impact on the levy. It'll help reduce the levy.
Okay.
So, and I can share some of that with you too, but we were anticipating as much as a $72 million bond levy, or bond, when we get into remodeling and adding on to the jail, or a new jail, however we want to term that. And if that's $6 million, it does save like $420,000 a year in payments, and a considerable amount of interest payments.
Yeah, the interest savings, and Mike has the numbers right, is like $4.8 million in interest by using that $6 million to help buy down some of that debt. So we kind of get, a lot of bang for the buck if we use it to buy down the amount of debt that we have to issue. So that's what we're looking to do. Using it to offset the levy, the concern I have is you're using one-time money to pay for operations that'll later cause a hole in your budget that you'll have to fill. So I think using it on a capital items seems to be appropriate. And, it did take 20 years to get to this point, so I think we have to be wise on how we use that, so.
I mean, you're Mr. Chair, but you're exactly right. You could use it to just offset the levy for several years, or, but as Randy said, the Finance Committee doesn't really recommend that.
Commissioner Lensmeyer?
And we do have an outside perspective to consider, and it's a valuable tool to use relative to our financial standing overall, and that's our bond rating. And bond ratings are done, as I indicated, by private outside entities. And it gives you a good idea where we stand overall, not just in terms of our internal finances, but also in comparison to other jurisdictions. So it's another tool, I guess, we can use to see what our standing really is.
Yeah, I understand $6 million is a lot of money, and also, I know there are good quality people working for our county that know that they can shift money, and by doing that, oftentimes we're saving funds, so I understand that that's probably a good thing to go ahead and do. Are you okay with that, Jeff? Okay, then I'll go ahead and we'll look for a motion for items 1 through 12 on the consent agenda.
I could move that.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the next item we have, Human Services Board. We'll recess a regular meeting, move on to Human Services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Renee Frowdings, I'm the Public Health Division Director. We only have one consent agenda item for the Human Services Board today, and you'll find that item on D1, which is page 358. And this is a tobacco license application that we've received and have processed. It is a new vendor in the Holdingford area. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Any questions? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve that licensure.
So move.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer,
Second.
Commissioner Mergen, discussion?
It's maybe just unfortunate this was right across from the high school.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
So be it.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item. We're moving on to Public Works. Jody?
Good morning.
Good morning.
County Engineer. I have one item for you today. I am asking the board to adopt a resolution requesting a speed study along County Road 4 between County Roads 120 and 133. It's pretty typical to ask that a speed study be done to re-examine the speed zones when we make a major alteration to a road. And in this case, we did a roundabout at the southern termini. And so I know that there have been a lot of requests if we could just simply move that 40-mile-an-hour zone a little further northwest, and we can't do that legally and have it be an enforceable speed. So I'm asking the board to adopt this resolution, and then we will ask MnDOT traffic engineers to do that speed study on that section of road for us.
Yeah, and also we have that four-way stop there at 5 Points
Correct.
as well, so that, yeah, that should be looked at. So I'll look for that motion.
I'll move it.
Commissioner Clark?
Second.
Commissioner Mergen? Discussion? All
Yeah,
those,
just very quickly, thank you for, I mean, I know this is something we routinely do, but I'm sure others have heard from folks too. There's probably concerns some places about how high the speed is, and in some other places, how low it is. So this will be hopefully very helpful, so thank you.
right, and we've got residential development coming there, especially on the Sartell side, yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And under miscellaneous, I just want to point out, we got all of our paving done last week. It was late on Friday night. All we have remaining on that contract is a little bit of shouldering, so hopefully everybody is happy, I guess, out in that area now.
Okay,
So I don't know if the board had anything for me.
okay. Get ready for winter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to environmental services.
Good morning,
Shelley.
Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Members of the board. Shelley Benson, Stearns County Environmental Services Director. I have a couple of people here with me today and several agenda items. I will have a miscellaneous item at the end, but I will turn it over to Angie Berg for our first item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angie Berg, Environmental Services. As many of you know, we're in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. And thank you for attending a lot of the steering committee meetings. Commissioner Mergen was at our township listening session last night. And so Lance Bernard with HKGI is joining us today. He's our project consultant. And although many of you know the process and they update with the plan, I think it's important for the public to also hear what we've been doing over the last 6 months. And Lance is here to do that for us today.
Well, thank you, board members. Appreciate the opportunity to give you a brief update of, what we've been up to. As Angie mentioned, a number of you have been involved in the process, but just a good touch point to give everybody kind of a clear understanding of what we've been doing over the last 6 months. We are in the process of updating the county's comprehensive plan. The last plan was adopted somewhere around, I believe, 2008, and it's been the practice of the county to update that every 10 years. So that plan really is a kind of a guiding document, a policy document that really articulates the vision on how the county is going to grow and develop over the next 20 years. So we tackle a number of items in that plan, varying from land use to transportation, parks, trails, natural resources, economic development. So very comprehensive in nature. We really try to tackle a number of those elements. Most of that time is spent a lot at looking at the land use components to that. Just a few bullet points on the screen of just how that plan's been used over the last 10 years to help guide some decisions that this board and other commissions have had to make over the years. Helps really kind of demonstrate how powerful this document is in celebrating the successes of what it has helped achieve and guide over the last 10 years. So we hope to build on these successes and learn from them and continue to kind of tweak this comprehensive plan to look out to the year 2040. Part of the overall process, we really want this to be very transparent. It's something that this board has mentioned early on, getting this project underway is really getting out there and talking to the public. So we've been doing a huge amount of engagement. County staff and my team has been out to numerous community events, just talking with residents. The funnest one that I went to that I got a lot of enjoyment out of was the breakfast on the farm. So a lot of fun photos here on the screen just showing how people were interacting with our booth. We've been reaching out to local chambers, businesses. We actually set up shop at the Cold Spring Granite break room for a day and talked to employees there. We've been actively engaging with the townships. Angie, Shelley, and her staff have been going to various town board meetings at their request just to listen and understand what their concerns are. So very robust list of engagement that we've been working with in various groups. Part of our outreach is an online engagement tool as well in developing a project website. And in all honesty, we're really happy with the traction that this website's getting. It's drawing a lot of people. So that's a lot to do with everybody here in this room that has helped promote kind of the efforts in the project website. It's a great resource for everybody to go to just keep in tune with meeting events, deadlines, calendars. We've posted all of our meeting minutes for any event that we're at, draft reports, so continuing that transparency and keeping things out there for everybody to review and react to. One way that we started to engage people early on too is creating a community forum discussion platform on the project website. So that has been gaining a lot of attraction, a lot of attention, and a lot of good conversation to give us a better understanding of what people's concerns and issues are within the county. So we've heard a lot from folks over the last 4 to 6 months. Some of the common themes is just continuing to build on our agrarian lifestyle, our farming, our rural communities, protecting natural resources, but then still having to balance some of those growth discussions on the urban-rural kind of divide, if you will, looking at housing opportunities, protecting natural resources, and building on our current county assets, whether it's parks, trails, and roads, and maintaining those. So one of the general themes out of those conversations is just how do we create better flexibility? How do we eliminate barriers to allow folks to be prosperous in the county, whether it's looking at new development or farming practices and so forth. So that's something that we're noodling on with this steering committee is how do we articulate that the best we can throughout this plan. With the steering committee, 25 members has helped guide that process. Many of you are part of that committee. We've worked very closely of trying to develop 5 vision statements that we're calling the pillars. I won't go over these word for word, but they're really trying to encapsulate what we're hearing from county residents and from the various commissions and elected officials of how we continue to look out 20 years, balancing where people live, how we balance that with agricultural heritage and farming. How do we create more economic opportunities in the county, build on the existing businesses and encourage expansion and entrepreneurship throughout the county, continuing to look at ways to protect, enhance, and restore our natural environments and look at recreational opportunities as well. And connectivity, looking more at kind of our infrastructure assets, broadband, roads, and so forth. So these 5 pillars hopefully capture what we've been hearing from the county and where we want to go over the next 20 years. We've tested the water over those vision statements through a number of engagement, and I think we're close. I think everybody has said that they really agree or strongly agree with these statements. So I think this just helps demonstrate that we've been listening to people and trying to reflect that the best we can. So moving forward, we're really kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of what these 5 pillars mean, getting into more policy discussions. This is something that we're going to be spending more time on with the steering committee on Monday. We introduced some of these bigger policy discussions with the township officials last night, or all day yesterday. We had two meetings with the township officials where we spent most of our time talking about just development and agricultural uses, rural uses throughout the county. So that is really kind of where we're at right now in the process, is just talking about some of these bigger moves. What are the big things that we really want to focus a little bit more on in the comprehensive plan? What are those policy areas that we need to think a little bit more about? So we're hoping to wrap up that discussion here this fall, this winter, get a plan, draft plan pulled together, and get that out for public review in the spring. So we still have a lot more engagement ahead of us. We're always trying to plan something every month, and even if it's just biweekly email blasts, just to keep people up to date. So happy to answer any questions you might have about the planning process, but that's where we're at today. So thank you.
Questions for Lance? Okay, Lance and staff, I appreciate the process we're going through. Actually, it's interesting that we make this discussion right before we have a very interesting public hearing about development and about what we want to look like as a county and how we want to treat our land use. And so, we obviously want to make sure we're doing the best we can to have good, solid planning instead of just operating in chaos. So, appreciate what you're doing. Any questions, anybody? Not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on.
Mr. Chair, our next agenda item is G1. It is packet page 366. It is public hearing for rezoning, and Angie is here to review that item with you. And then I think we have a few people in the audience who are going to testify.
Correct. Just for those that are in the audience, as Shelley mentioned, we're going to talk about the project, and then after we have discussion about any questions for the board that may have about the development, we'll ask those questions, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing. And then you'll have your chance to testify. We'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have some more discussion. So we'll go ahead and we'll present the proposal. Angie?
Good morning. County Board considered this item on September 24th and set a public hearing for today. The rezoning request is submitted by Brian Duchesne of Sauk Rapids on behalf of J. Lee Nolting and Craig Sexton Revocable Trust. The rezoning request is to rezone approximately 3 acres from the residential 1 zoning district to the commercial zoning district. The property is located north and east of Walleye Road and west of the Mississippi River in Brockway Township. Property address is 41024 and 41028 57th Avenue, Rice. As noted in your packet, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item on September 23rd, and they recommended denial of the rezoning on a 5-2 vote. The Planning Commission's findings of fact are listed in your packet, page 367, so I'm not going to go through those. I would note, however, that since the Planning Commission meeting, the department has informed the applicant that there are 2 additional items that would need to be resolved before a commercial establishment could occur on this property. The first is that the subdivision agreement that was entered into by the developer and the county when the property was replatted indicates that Lot 3, sorry, I don't have that number with me, but that lot number 3 would not be able to be allowed for commercial use. And the reason that we bring that up is many of us know this property had historically been used for a restaurant site, and the building was still standing when the plat went through. So there was concern that that building be returned to commercial use. So there was a subdivision agreement restriction indicating that could not occur. Amendments to subdivision agreements are required to be signed by all parties in the development, which would include 2 other properties. And so we're noting that was new information since the Planning Commission. And then the second issue, and we've also informed the applicant of this, is the property is located in the floodway and floodplain partially. And so we don't have current elevations of Walleye Road. Floodplain rules require that any principal use of a property has an elevation at or below 2 feet below the RFP. So basically, we would need to know elevations of the road to make sure that it is at the required elevation. So with that, and with a room full of people ready to speak, I will be handing out, as you're starting your public hearing, a summary of public hearing comments that I've received, and I've divided them into in opposition and in support, and I've paraphrased. And then I'm also going to be handing you a packet of information that came in since your meeting, which is all of the comments in their entirety. And I've included copies on the back table.
Okay. Before we open the public hearing, let's have any general questions about that.
I want to hear the public hearing.
I do too. Although, Angie, I will have one. You said Lot 3 it says it cannot be used for commercial development, but that can be resolved, correct?
Mr. Chair, the process for resolving that would be the other lot owner in the development, which will probably be speaking, the Steffises, they would have to agree to amend that subdivision agreement. So it's all the property, it's all the heirs and assigns on that property, which includes lot number 1.
Okay. Otherwise, it would be, we wouldn't need to have the public hearing if it wasn't developable. Correct. What I'm saying is that it can be resolved.
It could be resolved, Mr. Chair, if those landowners would concur to a change.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone else? If not, we're going to open the public hearing. And before we do that, first of all, I want to say I appreciate the input that we had at the Planning Commission, and also the way it was conducted. People were very civilized, very respectful, and by all means, everybody has their opportunity in which to speak. You're going to come up to the podium. You can state your name and your address, and then you'll have about 2 or 3 minutes to make your point. If somebody else has already made that point, you can mention it again, but don't go into great detail because it's already been cited, but by all means, you can say something about it. Now, this is a rather controversial issue, and I'll tell you what, I do appreciate the arguments from both sides. I can see, I would like to have a nice, quiet neighborhood and live in that quiet neighborhood. But by the same token, I also can appreciate having a nice restaurant and a nice asset on the river as well. So we'll do our best to listen and try to move forward in what's best for the people and for the county. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll be opening the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on the topic today, on the rezoning? Anybody wishing to speak? Sir, come on. I'll let you go first so you can get to work.
Thank you.
All right.
That time to plug the meter, too.
Well, thank you for your contribution.
Spend it well. Anyway, my name is Roger Weiss. My address is Rice anyway. I live right across from Gilligan's on the river. And
Can you just state your address so that they have it?
40815 County Road 1, Rice, Minnesota.
Okay, thanks.
And anyway, as much as I like the place down there, and like you said about having a restaurant and stuff on the river, that's a great and fine idea, but my experience has never been that nice down there living there. It's a very quiet community. Since the bar has been closed down, I live right off the end of the road, and I've seen a lot more stuff than people would normally see from that place. Everything from every night after close down, you would have people there doing drugs, all kinds of paraphernalia and all kinds of stuff out in the parking lots, running the radios, and you never get a decent night's sleep. It goes from Wednesday night completely through Sunday night, every week. I've had cars, 3 accidents there that clipped my telephone pole off twice. One time, one guy hit my approach, went airborne, landed on his roof, and his car was spinning around. And it's like, that's not a very sober behavior. So since then, I've had a tough time going out to get my mail from my mailbox. You look twice like your mom told you. But it's been not a good thing. We had an ordinance that had to be passed in the past that said no amplified music after 10 o'clock, and that went to like 8, I think, in the morning at Brockway Township because we had so many noise issues, with the beer joint. And that stuff, we don't want to revisit it. It's been a quiet community, for most of its time. I'm sad for the business loss, but us as neighbors don't want to pay for that. We don't want to pay for it out of our peace and quiet. I've had people come to my property and they were drunk in the middle of the night wanting to ride my horses. I had 2 guys. Yeah, that wasn't you, was it? Okay. Anyway,
I'm a short person. Getting on a horse is a major feat.
I hear you. I'm short too. Anyway, there were motorcycle accidents, and they had to call a helicopter out, and he wanted to land in my pasture. And fortunately enough, the ambulance got there and hauled him off, but the helicopter's sitting there hovering over my horses and the neighbor's horses. And, it's that kind of stuff that, leads me to say that's not what I want in my area.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone else wanting to testify?
My name is Brian Duchesne. I live at 1118 60th Street, Northeast Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. My intentions have been all along here is to put a supper club back onto the river in that 14-mile stretch. I realize everything that's been in the past, the accidents that could be involved. I worked at the Pirates Cove. I worked at the Kings. I could see everything happen. I used to own Rumor's Bar in Rice. We had issues. Then we started watching the time that our business was open. What I'm proposing here is totally different from a regular bar and restaurant. This is going to be a supper club where I could conduct weddings, anniversaries, graduation parties. I would try to do some special events on the river. But other than that, it's not going after the same clientele that's been there in the past. Now, back in the day when it was Portside, the Kings, the Persian, the Cove, the 400 Club, Ivan's in the Park, that was a different time. People went to those places so they could have a great meal and move on. They could reminisce with their friends back and forth. That's what I'm trying to bring back to the river and utilize that 14-mile stretch if there's nothing there. That's what I have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Good morning. I'm Melissa Steffes, and Chris is Steffes, 41032 57th Avenue. And we own the home directly to the north of the lots in question. We've, spoke quite a bit at the Planning Commission meeting and had a number of comments there, and just wanted to cover a few additional things. I mean, certainly we appreciate what they're trying to bring to the community with a restaurant and a bar, and we recognize that there's a demand for that, generally speaking. We don't feel that this is the right place for it. When we purchased the property in 2007, it was zoned residential. Craig Sexton in Brockway Township and the commissioner, I believe the chair commissioner, did sign the subdivision agreement that it was zoned residential. And there was a commitment made when we purchased our home it would stay that way. We certainly wouldn't have purchased our home if we knew that there was a possibility that it could be rezoned commercial. We have a number of concerns with the plan that was developed. I know in the picture that was distributed, you see that the building can only be located in that top northeastern corner of the property due to various issues. That would put the north wall of the building approximately 25 yards from our kitchen window. We don't want to be 25 yards from a wedding reception every Friday and Saturday night for the rest of our lives. So, aside from that and other issues, we, oppose the idea of having the business located here. We did have a couple of other questions around lot coverage. We know that there's a variance that would likely be needed, since in the drawing, it appears that over 25% of the land would be impervious lot coverage, and I believe that the rule for shoreline district is only 25% coverage would be allowed. And this is considered spot zoning, so there's obviously concerns with that in that, it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan, and we don't believe it complies with the Brockway Township plan either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify?
Dave Tyson, 40158 County Road 1. First off, I really got a big concern on being a wetland. This is from your guys' network. It shows how susceptible this land is for nitrates and stuff. And that is really a big concern because like they were saying, it's going to cover so much. There's not going to be much of a drain field. And there's water sitting down there all the time. I can't believe they can actually put something like that when you've got 200 or 300 people doing that. And I do believe they put in the commune between the third and the second lot with the septic system. And that was for a rural system only. That wasn't for any of this stuff. I mean, this is just, I don't know how that could possibly go. And they just spent how many millions of dollars or thousands of dollars, whatever it was, to drain the river down, drain the lake down, to try and get everything situated there. That's how acceptable our land is for it. And I also have, I went around with the petition, and I've got that signed. And when it comes down to it, right in the immediate area, we've got over 85% of the people that signed that don't want it. 2 of the people that didn't sign it didn't even know nothing about it. So there's only 2 that I know of that maybe were for it, but they didn't want to sign it. Now you're talking how many people in our little quiet town, I've been there since '86. I went through all the bars, all that stuff, and it is very miserable. When I first moved in there, it was dead. Then it started up again with Dick and the rest of them that owned it. And it's just been nothing but a pain. It's been great ever since then. Nice and quiet. I'm about ready to retire. I don't want to retire with that back there. And as far as if it does bring in people, did you ever sit on a lake and have all these jet skis and stuff? They're going to congregate around that area time and time again. And you are not going to, like you said, it's so loud and stuff that I've had it where the point where I'm on the west side, and I had the radio on in my garage, and I could not hear my radio. So, I mean, we went all through this, and it just, and that's the signatures. And if you're going to put that in ahead of 85% of the people, I would say you're spot zoning.
Did you want to present? Did you want to present those petitions?
We sent copies.
Okay,
to
good. All right.
Everybody. Yeah, I can.
Impact.
Get them.
Give it to Angie. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Yep.
Sure.
I can start that.
I am Tammy Sexton, 10305 Ferry Point Place in Rice. So I live across the river from the proposed site. And I remember when I was in high school, I grew up in Avon, and I went to Albany High School. And I remember going to prom, and I went to the Pirates Cove because the Pirates Cove was on the river, and I wanted nice prom pictures. And if you look at the 14-mile stretch right now, there really isn't a lot of places you could even put a restaurant. And again, I think we're talking about a supper club, a nice upscale place. And so I went online on Facebook, and I started a petition to see how many people would support having a restaurant there. Essentially, there was over 150 people with the 56367 area code Rice, another 150 over 56377, which is Sartell, and then the rest were various across, mostly St. Cloud. 92% of the respondents were in Minnesota. Some people were like Florida, like the Bruces, I know they signed it. I've got a list of all the signatures here. As of this morning, we were up to 1,120 signatures in favor of it. And again, they're printed out here, and it just got to be too much for my little printer, so I couldn't print everybody a copy, but I'll leave this with you.
Hello, my name is Craig Sexton. I am one of the lot owners. I live at 10305 Cherry Point, which is right across the river from this site. And we just put together just a rough concept sketch, and I say concept sketch of what it potentially could be. And I know there's a lot of consensus about people wanting it on a bar on the river. The challenge is a bar, a restaurant, where would you put it? And there's only a couple sites on the river where you could possibly put a restaurant or an establishment like this, and this happens to be one of them. And no matter where you would put one on this 14-mile stretch, there's always going to be a neighbor, because there's going to be a house somewhere, fortunately or unfortunately. What I'd like to propose is a consensus amongst the neighborhood of what this establishment looks like, and the proper berms, tree lines, the proper fencing, put in place so the restricts access. If you notice up on the top right, where you currently, the access would be, I would close that down. There's no reason to go through a neighborhood to get to an establishment like this. The other thing is I definitely put a wall in place along with tree lines. Some are already existing, some you'd have to add, but it would be again, a place where people go on the river, not a bar where you go there just to get drinks. I'm talking about a place where you go to have a nice dinner, nice reception, a place where you could park your boat on the river if you lived on the river. It'd be a destination. There are some challenges with the lands that were brought up, and a lot of it has to do with the floodplains. And if you look where the parking lot is, that's primarily where they're speaking of the how high the land is. But you also have to note when the gentleman took out the parking lot, he dug down 2.5 feet, and if you go to the land, you can see that, and he never replaced it with anything. And I think with, working with the county, I think it'd be pretty easy to bring in fill, to fill that back in and bring it up to the proper floodplain levels, and to put an establishment in that's a respectable establishment that the community wants. This is not just for me. This is for everybody. I think, brought up the point of a prom. People are looking for a destination on the Mississippi. It's the grand old Mississippi, and there's no place to go. And I would like to work with the Chris and the Daves of the world to make sure that if this thing goes up in this neighborhood, that it's put up to a point where it's acceptable to them. So it's not just thrown in there. It's got to be well thought out. And I'd like to propose even like a committee just to go through and say this is what needs to be put in place to make sure everybody in the neighborhood's happy. I think it can work, and I think it's a great spot for it. So, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify?
Hello. My name is Mark Allis. I live at 41036 57th Avenue. I am the house to the north of the Steffes' house. Got a lot of reasons to be against this rezoning request. I've lived there 22 years, and so I was there when it was operational as a bar. And I'll be the first to say that I bought my property with eyes wide open, knowing there was a bar there. But it did turn out to be a lot more noisy and busy than I ever thought it would be. Noise is certainly an issue. Several have talked about that. Light pollution is another consideration. Having large parking lot lights, there were volleyball league games there, and they had lights, and that's something. It shines through our bedroom windows. So then we've got to go get blackout curtains if we want to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to put my cheaters on.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Ditto.
Traffic on the river, I think somebody mentioned about how noisy that can be. It also is a big issue with waves and beach erosion. There's only so much beating that a riverside can take unless you go and put up a retaining wall or riprap rock, which I guess I could do, but again, that's part of my cost for there being a restaurant here. Driver traffic is another concern. If you bring up one of the closer maps, like the one that's up there, and then let's shoot north a little bit to where you can see the cul-de-sac.
Oh, we're going to have to go this way. I'll just zoom
No,
in.
that was the right map you had on.
That only shows that particular picture, so I'll have to
Oh.
just zoom in this way.
Oh, sure. So all of the planning brochures or printed plans that I've seen talk about two methods of ingress and egress, one being the Walleye Road and the other being 57th Avenue. 57th Avenue is the one that ends in the round cul-de-sac there. And the property that's between the cul-de-sac and the river is my property. If you look close, you'll see that the property that is owned as part of this development has a road corridor that goes up to the property line there, but it does not access that cul-de-sac. It only touches it with a corner. I gave an easement when a house was built there to allow traffic for that house to come over there. And they subsequently did pave a driveway into that house. That's the driveway to Steffes's right now. At the time that easement was drawn up, I did go to a lawyer and ask about it. Roger Nierengarten, who's not with us anymore, but some of you might remember him.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger said, well, there's two things you're going to want to put in there. One is that only residential traffic can ever cross this easement. And the other is that no commercial traffic can ever cross this easement. So those were written in there. Everybody signed off on it. There's even one more provision in there, and that is the grantee of that easement, the people who own that property that I gave the easement to, are responsible to see that no commercial traffic does go across there. Now, I know I've heard at the Planning Commission and here that they don't intend for there to be traffic going through there. But if they have the right to go through there, then who's going to stop it? If they don't stop it, is it up to me to stop that? Do I have to call a sheriff's department every day and see if they'll park on that cul-de-sac and see if there's traffic coming through? And we know that traffic is going to come late at night sometimes. And we know that there's going to be drivers on there that are not sober. And our driveways pop out of there. And the worst of it is the Steffeses have two little girls. They're just graduating from their training bikes up to their next level of bike, and they go off that driveway and circle around that cul-de-sac there. It's a residential neighborhood. Now, I lived there when it was a bar, as I said. when Jay Lee and Craig managed it. They were nice people, good neighbors. But many times there was excessive noise and boat traffic that was not enjoyable. And on a few occasions, there were live outdoor concerts that were just awful. Maybe 1,000 people would come and go on those concert days. And the noise did not stop at 1 o'clock. So I think these are all good reasons for not granting this zoning request. But I think just as important to think about is the precedent that it sets. I think part of what makes this rezoning request seem like a reasonable request is this idea that there was a restaurant there once upon a time. And there was. We all know that. We can't unremember that. But it's been gone for 12 years. The bar was there, and now it's gone for 12 years. That non-conforming use was lost when the building was torn down. It was there, and then it was gone, and that's for good. That's what non-conforming use is. So the fact that there was a footprint of a bar and restaurant there once upon a time isn't relevant today. I ask that you consider that when rezoning, when looking at the rezoning request, that you look at today's status as a residential neighborhood. Try and think about this request as if there had not been a previous use there. Hard to do, but that's what we're talking about here. Our area is now a residential neighborhood, just like the ones you all live in. And this is such a big departure from our current status that it begs the question, are you prepared to handle the next request for a spot zoning change to commercial in the middle of another residential neighborhood? For a turkey barn, a gas station, a bar? It's going to come, and they're going to look and say, well, you did it over here. Businesses do not belong in the middle of a residential neighborhood. They just don't. And that's what we are now. And there are other spots along the river. And they might cost more. It's going to be the price of getting a restaurant on. I'd love to have a bar and restaurant on the river. Hell, I'd sign the petition. I'll be number 1001 to sign on there. But not in my backyard.
Mark, in respect to everybody else here in the process, can you wrap it up, or do you have anything new, other information?
No, I don't. One other thing. The Pirates Cove, that old property is owned commercial. Sorry, there is some commercial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Good
Randy
morning.
Allgood, 9250 Lakewood Shore Road, Rice, Minnesota.
Your name again?
Randy Allgood.
Got it. Thank you, Randy.
And I live on the channel near Rumors, or kind of across from the Old Kings. And the property he just mentioned, Pirates Cove, was purchased, and I believe the gentleman has no intention on building a restaurant there. Anyway, ideas were brought up about the traffic on the river and the jet skis and all the commotion out in the river. That's already there with the sandbar. I go out to the river most weekends in the summer, and it's packed out there. So that would have no bearing. People try to come through our channel. I sit in my backyard and watch them to get to Rumors, because Rumors is the only place on that river area to come by boat. They get hung up because they have larger vessels. They have a really hard time getting through there. We sit in our backyard and we sit and watch them gunning their engines because they're stuck. Well, anybody that knows the channel knows it's theoretically probably 3 to 4 feet deep in most areas. But it's the only place that they have to go when they want to go out for dinner. Excuse me. The river's edge was there 12 years ago. So it's nothing that's new per se as far as having a business. Rumors Bar and Grill is in a residential area. I never hear of any problems over there. It would also help to have a new place out on the river, help Stearns County with the tax revenues. Think of all the taxes you guys could charge for having a new business.
Some people don't like that.
Some people don't like that. As business owners, we don't like that, but as, the county workers, yep, you like that. So yeah, I mean, there's only really, my husband and I were looking also at building on the river, and we looked at a lot of different places, but theoretically, there's two places that were good. Pirates Cove, River's Edge. Pirates Cove was purchased. We kind of gave up on the idea because it does require a lot of work, and it requires a lot of attention. We don't have a lot of attention to give. Opportunity for more jobs. He's putting up a really nice supper club. He's gonna have to employ quite a few people, to make that go. And last, change is good.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify?
Good morning. Chris Hauk, 1550 Riverside Avenue North. I'm a resident on the river in Stearns County. We've lived on the river for about 25 years. And visiting with all of our neighbors up and down the stretch that we do live on, it's about 100% unanimous approval of the idea of putting a restaurant on the river. A couple people have mentioned that the restaurant has been gone for about 12 years. I happen to be in the real estate business, and we have seen over the last 12 years a decrease in the spread that a person is willing to pay for property on the river since the restaurants have been gone. We have seen property on the river increasing in value along with the rest of the market. But if you look back 15, 16, 17, 20 years ago, there was a premium that was paid for property on the river because of the recreational activities and the dining activities that were available. What we've seen over the last 12 years is that premium has declined, and a comparable house off the river versus on the river is now closer to the price of a property on the river. So it's actually, to some degree, diminished property values on the river. The other thing we do is we do an awful lot of work with local businesses that are recruiting in the area. And one of the important aspects of a restaurant on the river is that it was a tremendous recruiting tool for local business, local medical community. And not having that kind of an amenity in the area is really, to some degree, detrimental to all the local businesses. It's an asset that I think would be very important for our community and add another aspect to the community that would help our business grow, prosper, and our community continue to improve. Again, I'm strongly in favor of it. And again, visiting with my neighbors, we have pretty much unanimously all agreed up and down the stretch we're on that it's a very good idea. So I guess I would be in support of the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else wishing to testify today? What, Greg? We'll let everybody testify. You can come back after, okay? Okay.
I'm Robin Tyson, 40958 County Road 1 in Rice. I have a couple of points just to make. First of all, utilizing the river, it's not utilizing the river, it's just turning it into a highway. And like the previous lady said, people are grinding through her channel. This is just moving the problem to a different area. So that's not, and for me, the river is a place for people to go fishing and utilize because it is a natural resource. It's a gorgeous place to go on and look, but it's not a party river. That's just not the point. The other thing, as far as blocking the noise, our house is right off of County Road 1, and about 20 years ago, we put in trees that now are really tall to try and block the traffic noise. It doesn't. So there's no way you can put anything up that's going to block the noise there that's going to take care of it for the whole neighborhood. The other thing, too, is our property taxes. I don't see our property value, I don't see the value of our property going up. People like the idea of having a place to go on the river, but they're not living next to it. So they're just going someplace for enjoyment.
for this to go in, it's going to change the way I live my life. I won't be able to spend time outside because there'll be people all around. And whether it's a supper club or whatever, people are going to be outside. And two, if you turn it into zoning, if you zone it into commercial, you don't know what's going to happen. You've opened it up to everything. Say this bar doesn't work. What's going to come in there next? It's totally open to whatever. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify? We'll take first-time testimony first. Anybody else wishing to testify?
Mike Nolting, 17517 Marina Court. With all due respect from what I'm hearing from people here, there's one thing that we need to remember. People are talking about noise, river noise, jet ski noise, boat noise. The facts are these: the river is a public piece of property. There's no way you're ever going to be able to limit it to say, I want canoes, I want kayaks, I want houseboats, I want this, I want that. There's never ever going to be an agreement on what would be acceptable. The people that moved there, they knew that they were moving on to a public piece of property. The concern with regards to the driveway coming off of the cul-de-sac, I don't think that there would be an issue, talking to everybody here, of eliminating that unless the zoning and planning said that that had to be there. Craig showed a map of it earlier stating we would vacate that or eliminate that. That way it gets the concern off of that cul-de-sac. Is it possible that there could be noise, 2 or 3 times a year? The answer is yes. But I can drive up and down County Road 1, I can drive up and down, Great River Road 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm going to hear that same thing in people's yards that have a graduation party or have a wedding reception in their own front yard. So the idea of this being, if you want to call it a beer place, isn't the intention here. It's not the intention at all. What it is, it's to be something like an old Pirates Cove. A Rumors, it's literally, if you go by Rumors at 10 o'clock, it's usually 3 cars in the parking lot. Brian has been in that part of the business. He understands that. The idea to sit back and say it's going to be a 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning deal, I don't think is going to happen. But one thing that I do want to address, and it was brought up early in this hearing, was the idea about people going down there after the bar closes, sitting in the parking lot, drinking beer, drug paraphernalia laying around, cars flying over, hitting posts. Since that bar was gone, that property has been a mess. I invite you guys to come out there and see the people that come down there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and have campfires on our property, and then in the morning we have a pile of beer cans sitting there because there is nobody there to actually enforce it. It's truly become a bigger mess not being there than it was with it there. And if you have an establishment there, you're going to get that riffraff, if you want, that's what you want to call them. They're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to come to that specific place and literally hurt, harm, destroy the neighborhood like they're doing right now. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to testify? First time, okay.
Hello. My name's John Steele. I live on the Stearns County side, 382nd Street, just north of Pine Point, so we are on the river property. And a lot of the points I've made, so I'm not going to wear those out, but one of the things which I'd also like to reinforce is that having a more upscale dining with certain restrictions around it. One thing I was just thinking about, I go over to Blackberry Ridge, play golf. That's similar. I think everybody knows the facility there for restaurants or for weddings and events. There's probably some of the most expensive homes in Stearns County are right around that. That's zone commercial. There doesn't ever seem to be any problem with some of the things that was brought up here. So basically, I'm in support as a river owner, enjoying the river. I'm in favor of going ahead with it, so. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishing to testify?
My name is Wayne Corman. I live at 9945 Ferry Point Place in Rice. I personally work at a larger upscale wedding and event center venue, and listening to Mr. Duchesne and the Sextons talk about the type of facility that they're planning on putting into this property, I can tell you from my personal experience that when people are going to a wedding, they take off their boots and they take off their blue jeans and they put on a tie or a nice dress, and they leave their motorcycle in the garage and they get in their car that they just washed that morning because they're going to a wedding. And it seems like as soon as someone puts on nicer clothes, it changes their demeanors. The board here, you look very professional and you don't look very rowdy to me. And that's the kind of atmosphere that that a wedding brings on, or any other upscale type party. I just would like to note something that was mentioned earlier, the tax consequences of putting a restaurant or this business on this property. It's, from what I'm hearing, Stearns County and the Sartell School District is in dire need of some more tax dollars to support that school system. So I think a business of this type would only help that cause. That's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify this morning? Any new folks that want to present any information to us?
One other point, Chris Steffes, 41032 57th Avenue. In that subdivision, there is, I don't think you all got forwarded all the other issues with regarding the septic, the shared septic, and the easement, ingress and egress, and maintenance agreement that I have a percentage in, so.
Okay.
I think you all have that.
Okay. Anyone else yet for first-time testimony? Okay.
Amy Van Cirksum, 4372 Pine Point Road, Sartell. Just a quick comment. I just feel like it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of decision. I feel like both sides can be, both things can be worked out. You can rezone it and work with the neighbors, and it could be a win-win for everybody. I just don't think it needs to be an all or nothing kind of decision.
Thank you.
So just in response to that, unfortunately, it is kind of a all or nothing response, because once it's zoned commercial, there's no going back. If this does not succeed, it could be turned into any other type of business that's allowable under the allowed usage. And I really think I agree that having a restaurant on the river would be great. We'd all love it, but we're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. It's not conducive to the area that is meant to be right now. Another mention on the septic, I know the parking lot that is shown on the diagram doesn't even consider the fact that there is a septic easement there, and you can't put a parking lot on top of that. So just a couple other things. Let's stick to the facts. We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know what the behavior of the patrons are going to be. We don't know how this business will evolve. We don't know how much it will grow. There's not a lot of room for growth if it is very successful. So we would like to see, something in the community that has a place that has room for growth, or room for a hotel next door, or room for, other types of commercial businesses next to it. Thank you.
Just 1 minute, please.
Did you move there after this restaurant was gone?
The restaurant was standing, but it was no longer in operation.
It was no longer in
already zoned
operation.
residential when we moved. And when we
Okay.
bought our place.
And could you, it seems to me you said something about a guarantee that you were given when you first moved there. Could you
Sure.
read?
So And whether or not it's binding or not, I can't tell you from a legal perspective, but when we signed our purchase agreement, the owner of the land at the time was Bob Herges, who had that property on contract for deed from Craig Sexton. And Bob Herges indicated in the purchase agreement that this land would remain residential. I have that in the packet that was submitted to the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. First of all, let me say, I want to make sure everybody has their chance to speak first before we give folks a second chance to speak, and we've already had a couple of people come forward again. Is there anybody that wants some first-time comments? Anybody else wishing to have first-time comments? Okay. If not, we'll go ahead and let folks speak again. But I want to urge you, go ahead. If things have been said already, please, let's not repeat them. But if you got responses to anything here, you're welcome to make those comments, but let's try to make them short. So anybody want to have second chance on comments, first of all? Sir, in the back.
Anyway, a lot of issues I had living right at the end of Gilligan's were Craig at one time decided to shut the county road down and charge admission to come down the county road, and people had to park up and down left and right side of County Road 1 on the bike paths. Now, he has no right to shut the county road down, and from my understanding, Charlie Burgraff at the time read him the riot act. The second thing was he never had a license for outdoor assemblies for bands and stuff like that, and we had to have ordinances enacted to prevent that. We have nothing but total bad memories of everything that has happened in that place. I don't know if the average person down on the river is probably in the white hair bracket because we've all been there 20 or 25 years. And all our grandkids play on County Road 1. They ride their bicycles, all of this kind of stuff. There's bus stops on there, and that has proven not to be a good thing mixed with alcohol and bad behavior. And we would like to make sure you take that into consideration before you do something that affects the immediate people in that area. Other people are going to make money on all of our backs, in a sense, and we don't want that to happen. If they can find someplace else to put it, take it there.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Duchesne again. In reference to, I've spoke to a couple of people in the area and offered to sit down with them prior to the board making a decision on this. I've talked to contractors that build poured wall construction to eliminate sound going through the wall to the north and to the west. So, and I can't do anything on the east side of it. The river carries sound. There's no change in that. Everybody is running up and down that river now. It was referenced at the sandbar. If you look at the parking areas at Stearns County Park and the access down by Sartell to get onto the river, on any weekend that it doesn't rain nonstop, those parking lots are packed. All those people do not have a place to go. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm willing to work with the residents to come up with something that is, works for everybody on this. As far as one of the pictures, it's a project. There's nothing says that it has to look like that. It's just giving you a concept of what to look for. Where the building can be placed, if you look at the overlay, it doesn't have to be right where I put it on that. So it's a hit and a miss. To eliminate the cul-de-sac coming into the property, I wouldn't want people coming through a residential area in the first place. As far as the parking lot goes, everything, it's a concept, nothing to be held to that. But if you look to the north on that, to build a berm and aesthetically make it look nice to the north with trees, like Tyson said, they put up a tree line to eliminate sound from County Road 1. I have no problem doing any of that to eliminate sound. So I'm just trying to combat some of the questions of what it's going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Dave Tyson, 40958 County Road 1. As far as the tree line goes and all that, their house is gonna be so close to you. And you gotta have something that you're going with for them to vote on. And I do see that there's outside seating, so I don't care what you put inside. You got people sitting outside, they're gonna be loud. You have drinks, they're gonna be loud, I don't care what, any person that, yeah, they can take off their jeans and put on clean clothes and everything else, they're still the same person, you give them a couple of drinks, and they're having a good time, and they're loud. That will be bad for us. There's no way around it. And as far as being clean, go to my yard, when that bar was down there, every time I got to clean before I mow lawn. That's ridiculous. And that's the way it was. You can say what you want, but that's the way it was. Now, as far as the way that's written up there, I'm worried about what's going to happen to my water, because that's all wet down there. That's wetland. We can't build on it. We can't do nothing with it. Somewhere or another, they're kin. But where's that water going to go if they build this up? And they did not take that much gravel out of there because those trees are still there. So that did not get lowered.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak again?
I'm on a beautiful part of the river. So
Just identify your name again.
Amy Van Cirksum, 4372 Pine Point. So I have people who put their anchors down on their pontoon boats right in front of my house. And they have their little outdoor seating party right in front of my house. So, I mean, I don't know how much you think you can control that. That's just part of living on the river. And also, if you've noticed, some of the people who are against this, they have noted that they all would like to have a restaurant on the river. They just don't want it by them. So everybody sounds like wants it, but no one wants it by them. And it's a public part of the river. And like I said, I have people on boats in front of my house who are, doing the same thing that maybe they would do at the restaurant.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Craig Sexton, 10305 Ferry Point. I just want to make one quick comment. Anybody can paint a horrible picture about a bar restaurant. And you could name any bar restaurant in central Minnesota, and somewhere, somehow, you could come up with a story about something happened bad at that establishment. I actually lived in Chris Schiffler's house. I built that house. And to deal with the low land, they actually built up the land to put the house in. So I know things can be done to take care of low lands because that house was in that same scenario and we built it up. I can also tell you I lived there with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I lived there for years. And what they're describing, yeah, there was an event or two a year at the most. And we got the proper authorities to approve it. And on one occasion it did go over and they came down with the sheriff and we had to shut down. But my kids were never in danger. They talk about garbage being thrown out. I lived in the house right there. There wasn't garbage thrown in my yard. So you can paint this picture of this horrible place, but in reality, that could happen anywhere. What we're trying to do is close off the residence. So, we're going to physically put a barrier there. So there's no access to get over to those properties. If we close off that easement and put a fence there and put a berm there. And do the best we can to make sure it's isolated to the south side. This is just a rendering I did in PowerPoint. This is not exactly what it's going to be. It was just to give people an idea of physical size in the lots and what it potentially could be. Comments about the septic system or in the parking lot. Okay, I drew this in PowerPoint on Friday, so I didn't take that into consideration. But my point is, if we can work together with the county, I'm sure we can come up with a place to put a septic system, a parking lot, and a building, and bring up the land to take care of the wetlands concerned, if everybody works together. And yes, could be a win-lose situation because you got a bar, restaurant versus not. But if there's an establishment put in there and everybody's in agreement on how it goes in, what it looks like, and puts restrictions on stuff, I think we can work together and work it out. Thank you.
Could we possibly wrap this up in 2 or 3 more speakers? The commentary has a lot of similarities at this point to a circular firing squad.
Okay.
Could we put a bow on this?
Yes, Commissioner Linsmeyer, we are getting a bit redundant. I agree. So if there's new information, we have heard from both sides as far as the pros and the cons, as far as new information, anything else. If you can make just a quick comment. I like to respect people's First Amendment rights, but
Just a question for the commissioners. Is it possible to rezone to commercial but limit the activities that could take place there?
Staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, as you know, rezonings are a legislative act by the county commissioners. Therefore, by law, you can't rezone something and then condition it upon only a particular use being allowed. So the short answer is no, that is not an option for the board.
Okay. All right. Anyone else with quick comments? All right. If not, we'll go ahead and...
Mr. Chair, I do have a few other, I won't read them in, but I would like to at least acknowledge those that submitted in writing.
Sure.
Materials in opposition and support. In opposition, we have Bill and Vonda Davison. Their information was in your packet. Grant and Heidi Mayer in opposition. Ron and Donna Court in opposition. And in support, Shelley Wright, Tim Christofferson, Mike Peck, Jesse Koval, Jason Westry, and Bill Bettendorf.
Okay. And
Thank
then,
you.
Commissioners, I believe you perhaps also have had numerous either phone calls or email about the topic as well. Okay. If no one else that wants to speak new, I will go ahead and I will close the public hearing. Okay. Wow. All right. I would like to encourage any person that's teaching civics in the area to make sure they have availability of this video, because I'll tell you, this is quite a display of two sides of an argument. And also, I want to thank the audience here, you folks, for being civil about it and being respectful, because yeah, it's going to be a tough decision. And in all my years in politics, this is one of the toughest, if not maybe not the most important, but definitely one of the most difficult decisions, and I still don't have my mind made up. So I've got a bunch of questions. I think the other commissioners do as well. We'll talk about those issues, and then we'll move forward with a vote. So, commissioners? Questions?
Typical public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start. I guess to me, the basis is what is it? It's right now is residential. And I know in my years being on the township as well as county commissioner, the spot zoning has been an issue all over the county as far as pretty much a no-go. I do have one curiosity question, I guess, is, you have two river lots sitting here vacant for how many years? I just find it kind of interesting that neither one has been sold for a residential or each one is a residential property. And I guess another question I have is, with this type of facility, I guess I don't know the square footage and stuff, but where would the septic system be proposed for this piece of property?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, the septic system, along with the parking and the screening and the building location and all of those standards would need to be proposed and designed.
Okay.
We've shared with Mr. Duchesne the fact that the subdivision agreement requires community septic system for the 3 lots. So even though Lot 1 is on their own septic, the septic system that would be built for 2 and 3 have to accommodate the sewer for Lot 1, which is the Steffes home. So the answer to your question is, that's not for the county to decide where the
Okay.
septic would go. It would be proposed by a septic designer, and in this particular case, the township would have to be involved as well, because it's a community septic system, and they're gonna be responsible for maintenance after the system is built. So there's a lot of design consideration put into this.
The other question, or I guess my other comment is, I too appreciate everybody being civil, because sometimes we get into these and it gets, kind of out of hand. And maybe a point to look at, because it seems like there is some agreement with everybody, but yet, we don't have that common denominator. And we are in the middle of this comprehensive planning process. Maybe by a stretch, there's a chance, if this doesn't go through today, that something can be worked out, that maybe there's a consensus, because obviously, if we're the authority and we can't change the rules right now, maybe there's a way we can come up with something in the comp plan in the future, because we do have these issues kind of going out even in the western part of Stearns County, where somebody has a vineyard and they'd like to put a restaurant there, but right now that's not allowed in the ag zone. Very similar to what's happening here is, you have one zoning, somebody would like to enhance it, but right now they can't enhance it. So maybe in the near future with our comprehensive planning process, we can maybe tweak things. That's my comment.
I want a response from a question Commissioner Notch mentioned. The properties were for sale on the river, and I saw them advertised over a number of years, but they did not sell. Why did they not sell? I could not understand why they not. Were they developable lots? Could homes have been built on those? Can you answer that question?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yes, they are developable, but the one thing that we've always found is when people come in, they don't want to build their house right next to the boat landing. That's what's perfect about putting a restaurant next to it. People want to stop in and be able to put their boat in and go come back and forth, between stop in, get a bag of ice or do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So they were developable, okay.
Yeah, we've never had a single offer.
In 12 years.
In 12 years, not one.
Okay.
You guys want to buy it? Yeah.
Jeff, it's in your district. No.
Okay. Get the river home.
This question is perhaps an extension. Steve, I too had a question with regard to the comprehensive plan and the kinds of additions that people have been looking at. But I believe, and I'm looking at you, Angie, that should this go through, some of the environmental aspects would, in addition, need to come through that process as well. I mean, you were talking about the septic tank and the parking lots, et cetera, but in terms of grade, and I don't know if there's been conversations with the soil and water conservation folks yet or not, but that was another question I have, because we do have a mix of use right now. It might be residential, but in terms of what's happening with the river, we're both striving to protect it and to make sure that people are being able to utilize it, and they're going to. So that was one of my questions, was just kind of where are those conversations?
I met with Nikki from the DNR. She came out to the property. We walked this, it was perfect because the drawdown on the river was happening right then. So we walked all the way up to the Steffes' property, which we got the riprap that's there now that was put in, the granite, and what her thoughts were on it. And she brought up 500-year floodplain and what I have to do to bring in dirt, to bring things back to where it was, and then how the construction of the building itself would have to come up. It was like 4 feet to the bottom of the building, just to bring everything up to her standards, to the DNR.
Okay, thank you.
And then as far as the septic was concerned, Bursky excavated met me on the property also, and I told them at that point that the Steffes had a shared septic if theirs failed. And he said that wouldn't be a problem. They could design it in 2-3 different spots when they did the site plan to incorporate
you.
And Commissioner, I want to go, I want to jump onto your question there with respects to fill. A considerable amount of, does it look like there would be a considerable amount of fill that would be to be brought in, and is there a restriction on the amount that can be brought in?
Mr. Chair, there isn't a restriction on the amount that can be brought in for placement of the parking lot, the driving surface or the road, and then the building. They're actually required to be at a proper elevation. Parking and the amount of impervious is something that our department has pointed out to Mr. Duchesne would be a great consideration, because the amount of impervious may exceed 25%, in which case there may need to be a variance. So none of these things are a guarantee. A stormwater management plan would be required to look at, volume and rate. Where that would be on the plan would be, again, design consideration along with an engineer, the septic contractor, our office, SWCD. I mean, we would all have, there's a lot of planning that would happen after this in the event for it all to occur.
Okay. And I did have a question about the impervious. Could you have the number of or necessary parking spots, but yet then meet the requirements for the amount of impervious? Is that?
Mr. Chair, I don't want to say no, because we don't know at this point, because we don't know the size of the building they're proposing, and parking is based on occupancy. And so that gets complicated when you look at building occupancy for fire code, and the amount of seats that you need dictates the amount of parking that you need.
Correct. Yeah.
So in one way, the building will dictate the parking, or the parking will dictate the building size, honestly, is how this would happen.
Okay. Other questions? I've got a couple. First of all, the boat landing is property, I believe, of Brockway Township, and people use that to access the river. What would be the status then of that access to the river by Brockway Township if the restaurant does go in?
Mr. Chair, the road is it's a dedicated road, or Old Ferry Crossing, and there used to be an old ferry crossing that connected to Benton County. When the property was platted years ago, we went through great lengths to compare this platted dedication along with the platted dedication of the adjacent plats. So to answer your question, is nothing would change unless the township were to vacate a portion of that road or landing. It would remain the same: ownership, status, use, etc.
Okay. Does Brockway Township have parking space down there? Okay, I see some nods heads. Okay. All right. Okay. Board, any other questions? Lee?
It's not a question, it's a comment. Over the years, having sat through a number of these types of public hearings, it's remarkable the number of times that folks that testify against a proposed improvement, that if it came to pass that their properties improvements, the buildings didn't exist, they would probably not meet our current criteria for development. Just an observation.
Okay. Okay. If there are no more questions, we can move forward with a motion. And see
Well,
which
we got to
direction we're
work.
taking.
We got to work through the batting order here. So let's see what happens. I move we approve the request.
We've got a motion to approve the request. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Well, the motion dies for lack of a second.
I will second it.
No.
And I will second.
Motion didn't die.
I will second it to allow us to have discussion. Because I
Mr.
think-
Chair, I was about to do that for
Okay.
you, because I think
All
the
right.
discussion's important.
And I will tell you this, again, it looks like it's a win-win situation, not, or a lose-lose situation, not. there's too many questions here as far as getting it resolved, and I've heard the argument from both sides.
Yeah.
I appreciate the comments by Commissioner Notch. I think there may be an opportunity here, but the opportunity is not today. We heard from the Planning Commission, the reason that they didn't, or many of those people that were at that Planning Commission meeting did not like the proposal, and the reason they did not like it is because they did not see the other opportunities that were there that could potentially go into that site. It may have a potential to be a nice restaurant, and that could be true, but those other things are things that maybe would not allow it to happen. So I will not be supporting the motion. Other comments?
I'm going to have to support the Planning Commission's decision on this, and I'm going to take the Steffes' word for it that this was in their purchase agreement. I wish I had a copy of that, but, and also, if, I think an important point was made that if this restaurant does not work out, what other types of businesses could come in there? That worries me a little bit.
Any other comments?
I've got one. I do believe this, as Commissioner Notch indicated before, this is popping up in other places. This is not unique to here. We do have a venue. If we've got an orchard, can we put a building on it? I mean, we have a number of those, and it does seem appropriate that the timing in a way is a little off for us, because I think as part of our comprehensive plan, we've seen a number of situations where the question is, how can we mix what the property owners are looking to do, change and growth over time, and be mindful and respectful to the rest of the community. So it would seem like that us finishing up that process and then could continue conversations with the other folks there are important. I do remember what it was like when we had something on the river. It was great. And my family and I used to live further down the river. We were right in town. We were 3 houses north of a railroad track with a cul-de-sac. We had 2 little kids there. Part of the reason why, honestly, we moved was we were a little worried about the railroad tracks that were near there. We were afraid our kids were going to start going across the Mississippi. I think for many of us who have lived on or do live on water, there is a number of things to be balanced. So I'm hoping, I want to note that the township is supporting this. We've got some time. It almost seems like it's not ripe. And and I'm sorry, I'm not remembering your name, sir, but the point brought up about our current ordinance doesn't allow for us to have a more specific use is somewhat problematic. And I apologize, I'm going to say one more thing. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think that what you're talking about in terms of looking at the sound issues, the environmental issues, the respect to the neighborhood is a really important piece. So while I'll be voting no today to move forward, my hope is that there's an opportunity to revisit this with our comprehensive plan.
Me?
We'll have a comment after the vote regardless of the outcome.
Okay, does it involve a horse?
No.
Okay, all right. Staff, and as far as the comprehensive plan, we heard a summary of how far we've been. What are we talking about that as far as being completed? When do we look at that?
Mr. Chair, we're looking at a completion date for the comprehensive plan in the spring of 2020.
Okay.
Typically after that, we obtain some policy direction from the board on what do you want to change and in what order do we want to change things. There's been a lot of land use ideas thrown out for the comp plan. So part of the implementation schedule for changing our rules will be up to the commissioners. What are we going to tackle first? So I think it's a great idea. We can definitely continue to have those conversations. It's going to be a couple of years. Okay. I mean, let's just be realistic with a time frame. By the time we get our comprehensive plan completed and we look at identifying what's going to change and how is it going to change and when is it going to change, that could be a little bit.
Okay. And all of you folks in the audience do have the opportunity to comment about our comprehensive plan. So the motion and the second was to approve the project and move it forward. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye. Roll call.
Nay.
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Nay.
Commissioner Clark,
Nay.
Commissioner Persky,
Nay.
motion fails.
Okay. Thank you all for, oh,
What's the time period for reconsideration? Typically, it's 1 year in other jurisdictions. Ironically, I don't know what it is for Stearns County. When can they bring this back up again? Sorry to interrupt you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lansmeyer, they can bring it up at any time, but I think realistically, we should at least have an idea after the comprehensive plan and kind of an implementation schedule understanding. So
So we don't have this 1 year limit? I was surprised. Okay, well, I learned something today.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, what we were discussing is that the motion to approve failed, and so it's always cleanest if a follow-up motion can be made to concur with the Planning Commission, in this case, to deny the request.
I'll move the planning commission's recommendation.
I'll second.
we have a motion and second to support the Planning Commission's decision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to do a roll call?
No, I think.
No, you got to figure it out, Randy.
Okay. All right. We take a quick recess?
I think that's a good.
Okay, we're going to recess at this time. Okay, we are back after recess here. Environmental Services, let's continue on with the meeting.
Mr. Chair, we have the next item, H1, packet page 416, related to another rezoning, and Angie Berg is here to go through that item with you.
The next item on the agenda is to consider the Planning Commission action submitted for a rezoning submitted by David Walzer Revocable Trust. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this on October 17th. Commissioner Persky was there, as was Shelley. The request is to rezone approximately 20 acres from the A40 zoning district to the R10 zoning district. The property is located in St. Wendell Township. St. Wendell Township did recommend approval of the request. The Planning Commission, on a 4-2 vote, recommended denial, with members Crone and Blankish voting against the motion. With that, typically the board will vote to concur with the Planning Commission, and if you choose not to concur with the Planning Commission, then we would ask that you schedule a public hearing at some time in the future. And I would also let you know that Mr. Walls, the applicant, is here today in case you have any questions for him.
Okay. Angie, do you have a picture of the parcel?
Sure.
Can you just bring it up? Okay, and basically it's an Ag 40, and then we'd like to split it into, the existing home would become a separate piece with, on the 20 acres, and then the remaining 20 acres would then be divided into two 10-acre lots, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, any other questions for Angie? Okay. Commissioners, what would you like to do? And the Planning Commission defeated it 4-2. They were saying that it was spot zoning, that they respected the area being supported for Ag 40, being an industrial, or excuse me, agricultural area with a high LIFA score. And at this time, that they would like to encourage agriculture to continue to exist in that area, and that the area would encourage that the property be sold as a 40 as opposed to splitting it up for more residential development, which was in the comprehensive plan, yet St. Wendell Township did vote in favor of the divide.
So, Mr. Chair, is this west of County Road 2 then, and 4? Or
It's
is
just
this
down from Fisher Hill, yeah.
to the east or west?
To the west.
To the west.
Am I allowed to speak, Mr. Chair?
I would be fine with that, if you can keep it short and keep, go ahead, be respectful. All right, all right.
Just for a little information, quickly, the original farm I purchased back in '96, and then I purchased the other west 20 acres in approximately 2005 from my father-in-law. So they are two separate parcels of land with two separate. So originally I went to St. Wendell on February 5th, and I was going to take the 20 acres and break it into 4 5-acre lots. Planning and zoning did approve that, but the board denied that and said they would allow the 2 10s. The reason I wanted to split the land is originally the farm, it's a huge house. I had kids and horses and all these things. That's why I have the hayfield. They're gone. I don't need a 5-bedroom house anymore. So the plan was to build a smaller home on one of the other parcels that would be all on one level for myself. And then, of course, the Planning Commission denied that because they thought the field, which is 12 acres of hay, is profitable. Well, on a good year, I could make $1,000. So then you look at some of the other things the Planning Commission approved at that meeting, like solar farms and things. And then also the land to the west of the homes that I live on is 4 9.5-acre lots. That was replotted years ago. And then on the other side of County Road 2 is 100 acres that apparently the county allowed Rose to develop and split that up. Now, I'm a quarter mile from that. So
it seems to me that before the public meeting, they pretty much had their decision made no matter what I would say, which I didn't think was exactly right because of the Lisa score at 75 versus the 65-point threshold. And that's probably what threw it over. But my plan would be to have access on the 95th Avenue, which 75% of the property owners on 95th are residential, which you may or may not know. So until I get to have my request granted in some form, I would either need to decide to fight it, move, put a solar farm in, or something else. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to chime in that I met with St. Wendell Township last month, well, actually this month, to talk about their growth map and talk about all the rezonings that we've seen. And this is just a hand-drawn map that I've put up. And it indicates all of the rezonings that have occurred since 2010, with the exception of Lodemeyer. I put that on for my own reference, but that was prior to. So I wanted to go and talk to St. Wendell Township mostly because the Planning Commission does struggle with these requests, as does the board. And St. Wendell is in a transition area, and it's in Sartell school districts, and everyone wants to live there. So we are struggling with, as staff, when we talk to applicants coming in our office, as is the Planning Commission and the board. So St. Wendell Township, as you know, and as Mr. Wells indicated, they did not support an R5. They did support an R10 because their belief in their township is that anything outside of what they call their sewer service area, they would support an R10. They would support 10-acre lots in most places in their township, depending on location of the proposed development near animal feedlots, how good the farmland is, and not that we're trying to push all decisions off till our comprehensive plan is done, but this is definitely related to where we're going with our comprehensive plan. And as Commissioner Mergen noted last night, if we go from a parcel by parcel based future land use map to a more conceptual policy based map, there may be or policy based decisions, there may be an opportunity for the township, the Planning Commission, the county board to look at criteria for which a rezoning would happen, not only if it's on a map or not on a map. So by far, we've had more rezonings in St. Wendell Township in the last 10 years than any other township. And so it's difficult. But I wanted to share that. We continue to work with St. Wendell Township. We don't have all the answers for them, and nor do they for us, but this is definitely an area that we are going to continue to see growth pressure.
We can do that question now. First of all, any more questions? Dave, I want to tell you what I mentioned it at the planning meeting. I very much appreciate what you wanted to do and what you want to do, and I would want to do the same thing. So.
Well, thank you. And then also, if you don't know, 95th Avenue is the western boundary of the Sartell School District.
Yeah, it's an attractive spot.
Which apparently everybody's running to, I guess.
Yeah, I taught there 27 years.
I would say everybody.
Yeah. And the Planning Commission did vote 4-2 to deny, saying that it was spot zoning. Also, I see, we did have the situation in St. Anna where we had those large lots too. We denied those. I can understand his frustration when he goes back to Fisher Hill, goes south, and we just have new R10 lots there that were just passed a year or two ago. So I'll look for a motion either to accept the proposed Planning Commission's results or asking a motion to approve it.
A public hearing.
Or a public hearing.
I mean, those are our two.
Yeah, we could do that as well.
Yeah, since the Planning Commission was split here, I would move to have our own public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to have our own separate public hearing. Any further discussion? If that's the wishes of council or commission, I guess I'm okay with that. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Dave, you're going to get another chance at it. Okay? No. We'll do the same thing. Were you here earlier? Did you see the public hearing on the last one? We'll do the same thing. So bring lunch. We'll set that date, okay? All right, good luck. All right.
The next item on our agenda is H2, packet page 435. It's a subdivision agreement, and Angie is here to go through that item.
The next item on the agenda is to consider an amendment to a subdivision agreement recorded for the plat of Countryside Cove. February 21st, 2019, the county board, I believe, had your own public hearing on this plat, and one of the subdivision agreement language provisions says that Outlot A is not allowed a residential dwelling. Mr. Segura, who still owns the lots within the development, so he is the sole owner of the lots at this point, he is requesting an amendment to that agreement to allow a residential dwelling at some time in the future. As you probably remember, our zoning ordinance does allow for transfer of development rights from non-adjacent properties, provided the property owner has owned the land for 3 contiguous years in the same name. So it's very possible and probable that Mr. Segura does have land that he owns in the nearby area that he could transfer credit to in the future. So requests like this aren't common, but the subdivision ordinance does allow the board to make that change. The other option is for the county board to send this to the planning commission, and we would have a public hearing to get the planning commission and the public's input. So those would be your options today, and Mr. Segura, the property owner, is here today as well.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we send it back to the planning commission.
A second.
Okay. Yeah. Any discussion on that? I think that's appropriate too, so. I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. So that will go back to the planning commission.
Yes, thank you.
Okay?
And you're not quite done yet.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, our next agenda item, H3, is the continuation of the discussion by the county board to consider adopting ordinance 591, replacing ordinance 503, which regulates public pools. The public hearing, you did close the public hearing. You asked us numerous questions, and we did reply to those questions, so all of that information is in the packet. The supervisor related to that item is not here, but I do have staff, fortunately, all 3 of them right behind me, so if there are specific questions, you guys can ask those, and we will do our best to respond. So on packet page 473 were the questions, and then the responses from staff were in blue. So we talked about license issuance and process. We talked about how that change of ownership has occurred. A lot of it was related to lost the word.
Prorated fees?
Thank you.
fees.
Prorated fees, totally lost it right there. And the issue really was, do we have a lot of those requests? And we don't. What we did find is that a lot of people change licenses for lots of business reasons at the beginning of a year. So for taxation, et cetera, things happen at the end of a year. So as we are doing our licensing, it seems to work out pretty well. So we don't have a significant number of changes that would require proration. So we do have all those responses. I don't know what specifically you'd like us to go through, but I think we tried to lay it out. We do have inspections on a change of ownership. We also have inspections if it is a new pool, and then the state reviews that, and then we do inspections. So, and then we get it into the cycle of annual inspections. So there's quite a bit of review and process.
First, I just want to thank you and thank staff for taking the time. I found it very helpful. I'm glad it was part of our packet, so other others can see it. I thought that was useful, and actually, I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance as drafted.
I'll second that.
No more discussion. I'll try to make it short. Okay, again, my concern was with the prorated, and that was the only issue I had with that. And in that, Shelley, it's my understanding that when it does change hands, you have a new inspection, correct?
Correct.
And I was just thinking that, you know, if it comes in November or December, that they shouldn't have to pay a full year's amount, you know, for that, and that's the way it is right now. But yet, then it would be under inspection in that November or December. Then the following year, it would be again inspected as well. I would just propose one different option, and that would be that it would be prorated and have that inspection, but that inspection would then be for the remainder of that year and the continuous next year, so staff would not have to come out and do a re-inspection again, because it would have had 2 inspections that year. It would then complete the year, and then they would also pay the licensure fee for the next year, okay? So if it was then inspected in November, they would pay the fee for 14 months, opposed to paying a whole 12 months, and then again pay it 12 months the next year. That would be a proposal that I would make as a condition. If it's not acceptable to the board, that's fine.
Well, then take the fee divided by 12 times by 14. Would that be their new inspection fee then?
Right.
Well, their inspection.
Well, I'm just.
No, they would. They would
It's
pay.
kind of a, and maybe it's more of a, could the county staff work with, you know, if they know this transfer is going to take place in November, December, I mean, is there flexibility to?
Well,
You know,
I
have
like the fact that when it changes hands, you got a new owner coming in, it should be inspected.
Definitely.
That must happen, okay?
Yes, it does happen.
Okay. Any other? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I can live with it.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I do have one miscellaneous item. Holly Kvorik of the NRCS out of Glenwood is working with the Chippewa Watershed District, and they are looking to do a new joint powers agreement, and are wondering if Stearns County, with its massive amount of 82 acres within the Chippewa Watershed District, want to be a part of that joint planning board. And my guess is that you probably do not want to enter into a joint powers for 82 acres in the Chippewa watershed, but it is incumbent upon me to ask you if you would like to do so.
Mr. Chair, I don't think you have an opinion in there, do you? I was kidding.
I would not be interested in that.
Yeah.
I think for that,
We'll
Okay.
my
bring
guess
that-
is they'll do a good job.
I will let Holly know that the county will not be participating in that joint powers.
Okay.
And that's all I have, but thank you very much. And if you have any other questions, I can certainly.
Thank you, Shelley, too, for your staff. We had some trying issues today, and I appreciate your folks. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on. Final item here, I believe, is issues by commissioner. Randy, we'll start down there.
No, I don't have anything.
Steve?
Nope, I think we'll be good.
I've had enough.
Okay.
None.
And just want to thank the township supervisors for waiting for us.
Yeah, thanks for putting up for us.
Well, the way it started, I didn't know if we were going to be finished by 11, but we finished on. Mike, did you have anything for us? You know, and I don't have anything. I always have a couple of public service announcements. The days are getting short, okay? Watch for children in the dark mornings. Also watch for deer, and watch for deer hunters, okay? With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.